Once again, I welcome you all in the session of Dr. Dinesh Kumar, Associate Professor, Inorganic and Nanochemistry, School of Sciences, Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, India. He has 14 years of rich experience in teaching and academic research. He has delivered 49 invited talks in various universities holding different subjects like coordination compounds, organometallic compounds, transition metal complexes, ES, NMR, UV visible spectroscopy, atomic and molecular spectroscopy. He has 108 book chapters, one book published in his research tenure till date. In symposia and conferences, 4 papers published and presented. Total 96 publications in various national and international journals. 4 research projects completed and 1 is ongoing. 6 MSc dissertation and 18 PhDs has been awarded under his guidance and 1 MPhil, 3 PhDs are ongoing. 30 papers presented in symposia and conferences at international level. Some glimpse, awards and achievements of Dr. Dinesh Kumar. Best cited author by Royal Society of Chemistry, UK 2019. Excellent Speaker Award in 2013. Innovative Young Researcher Award by Academy of Innovative Research, UP 2010. Young Scientist Award by Indian Council of Chemists, Agra 2008. Junior Research Fellowship, CSIR, New Delhi 2007. University of Junior Research Fellowship, University of Rajasthan 2005. Cleared NET, CSIR, UGC, New Delhi 2004. Chaired as scientific session in International Conference EPIC 2020 organized by Engineering College, Banswara, Rajasthan in 2020. Expert judge in Basic Science at Shodh Student Research Convention 2020. DPC member to evaluate the project of PhD coursework at PDPU Gandhinagar. Expert committee member of different universities for Faculty of Sciences. Former BOS member of Banasthali University, Rajasthan. A member of Editorial Advisory Board of Cambridge Scholars Publishing, UK. Reviewer of ACS, John Willey and Sons, RSC, Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, and Springer. Chaired a session and judged in various international national conferences, workshops, and seminars. He has delivered a live radio talks on how to learn chemistry in 2016, fellowship and summer training programs in chemistry on 2012, CSIR UGC NET preparation program in chemistry in 2011, and scope of chemistry in 2009. He is also a member of academic societies like member of American Chemical Society, Washington, USA, member of Indian Council of Chemists, Agra, Indian Chemical Society, Kolkata, life member of Indian Science Congress Association, Kolkata, member of Green Chemistry Network Center, University of Delhi, life member of Material Research Society, IISc, Bangalore. His research area includes nanochemistry and nanomaterials, environmental pollution, synthetic inorganic chemistry, synthesis and characterization of skip-based ligands and their metal complexes. Thank you.
Dear participants, good day. Next 60 minutes, we will discuss bonding theories of coordination compounds. The journey of metal ligand bonding in coordination compounds. We will start since 1837 and we will end this story on 1974. So this is the outline of my presentation, which includes following headings. All these bonding theories we will discuss in detail later on. So before to discuss all these theories, I would like to discuss or I would like to introduce coordination chemistry. Coordination chemistry is the branch of inorganic chemistry which includes the chemistry of coordination compounds, which deals the chemistry of coordination compounds. And we know very well that coordination compounds are nothing, just simply compounds that contains at least one coordination entity as per IUPAC recommendations. And in coordination entity, there is one ligand and there is one metal ion, and they are binding to each other by a coordinate, dative, or you can say coordinate covalent bond. In this coordination entity, donor species, which is known as Lewis base, ligand, and acceptor species, which is metal ion known as acceptor. So, first scientific coordination compound was synthesized 1597, that was tetramine copper secondine. In the year of 1704, Prussian blue compound was synthesized as second inorganic coordination compound. So this is the high time to discuss bonding theories. So we are going to start this journey from Gram's ammonium theory. This theory was proposed by Gram in 1837. As its name defines or says, ammonia presents here as ammonium ion, so that this theory known as Gram's ammonium theory. After 4 years later, Berzelius proposed a wonderful theory, conjugate theory. He designed or formed conjugate coordination compounds of cobalt and ammonia. And in 1869, Blumstein and Jorgensen proposed a wonderful theory that is known as chain theory. In this theory, ammonia presents as a chain compound or chain just like methylene in organic compounds. They propose there are two types of chlorine atoms. One is near Earth, which is directly binding or coordinating with central metal ion, and another chlorine atom which is binding or coordinating via chain of ammonia molecules. So there was a war between Jorgensen and Werner's to prove their own theories superior, and Werner proposed Werner's coordination theory in 1891. In his theory, Werner proposed or used two types of the valencies in coordination compounds. First is primary valency. This valency is ionizable and corresponds to oxidation number. And another valency known as secondary valency, which is non-ionizable and corresponds to coordination number in coordination compound or in coordination entity. It means primary valency is responsible for conductance in coordination compounds, and secondary valency as non-ionizable, which will not contribute in conductivity of coordination compound. Secondary valency will utilize to make metal coordinatively as well as electronically saturated. After the incorporate stereoisomerism concept in coordination compounds, Werner won that fight because Blumstein and his student Jorgensen theory could not explain isomerism behavior in coordination compounds. But Werner's theory can explain isomerism in coordination compounds like cis and trans. linkage isomerism. There are several types of isomerism. With the help of Lewis electron pair concept and Silsvik-Powell-Lowry concept, that is EAN, in 1931, Pauling was proposed valency bond theory concept. In his concept, he used three main concepts. First is atomic orbital theory, and another is a double bonding, and third and last is magnetism. Atomic orbital theory concept further divided into main concepts, sub-concepts, hybridization and electron pair concept. We know very well hybridization is the mixing of atomic orbitals. Those are different in maybe shape, size, energy, and finally they form mixed or almost same energetic hybrid orbitals. It means metal will provide hybrid orbital to the ligand to accept electron pairs from ligand in this theory. Here I would like to tell you one thing. There are three theories: VBT, CFT, MOT. All three theories are contemporary because valency bond theory came 1931, MOT and CFT came also in the same time of period, means 1930 to 1935. But their application, to explore their applications, valency bond theory has considered first one. So as I told you, hybridization is the process of mixing of atomic orbitals. So through this diagram, we clearly can see the octahedral complexes formed by the formation of metal and 6 ligand combination. Here definitely metal, that is chromium, will provide 6 vacant hybrid orbitals. These are, you know very well, D2sp3, and all three, or you can say all D2sp3 hybrid orbitals will accept one electron pair from 6 NS3 molecule as a ligand, and then finally they will form octahedral complexes of hexaamine chromium third. As in this slide, there is one question that tetramine copper second is less stable at low pH. Why? Why tetramine copper second is less stable? We know very well, if we are decreasing pH, it means we are increasing simultaneously concentration of H ions. If we are increasing concentration of H ions, then definitely there is one possibility also emerging, that is replacement of copper by H ions. And finally you can say tetramine copper second complex will decompose and formation of ammonium ion. So this is the hybridization. And similarly, if there are 4 ligands, then metal have to provide 4 vacant hybrid orbitals to form 4 metal ligand bonds. And these 4 hybrid orbitals known as sp3. Here we are taking an example as a tetrahedral molecule, that is tetrahydroxy zincate second ion. And Another example, that is square planar tetracyanonucleate second ion. In square planar, also coordination number is 4, but hybrid state of nickel is D2, oh sorry, DsP2. It means here involvement of d orbital is coming or emerging instead of p orbital. It means after the involvement of d orbital in bonding, we know very well, change the polarity of the molecules, all those things. So finally, for dsp2 hybrid orbital will form square planar molecule with 90-degree bond angle. Second concept was double bonding concept, and this concept is a very important concept in valency bond theory proposed by Pauling to define the stability of coordination compounds with different types of the ligands. If ligands are sigma donor, pi donor, then how can we define the stability of these molecules? Because after coordinating with ligand, then finally metal accumulates one negative charge. It means if there is octahedral complex, then there will be 6 negative charges on metal ion. And we know very well, metal cannot exist, stabilize itself with negative charge. But we know very well, metal forms several complexes with such type ligands. So how can define the stability of such type coordination compounds? So in double bonding concept, Pauling first concept was electron neutrality principle. In this principle, we can use electronegativity concept to disperse the excessive negative charge which is accumulated by metal ion. But if ligand having electronegative donor sites, then can generate extraordinary electron dispersing capacity. For example, hexa-aqua complex of aluminium is more stable than hexaamine complex. So that the stability of hexa-aqua we can define with the help of electronegativity of oxygen, which is larger than nitrogen in hexa-aqua complex. It means oxygen can disperse excessive negative charge which is accumulated on aluminium by coordination. So by using this electronegativity concept, we can define finally metal feels electrically neutral and complex becomes stable. Similarly, we can define the more stability of tetra-aqua of beryllium compared to hexa-aqua on the basis of, as I told you, after the accepting electron, hexa-aqua beryllium complex consists 4 negative charge and tetra-aqua beryllium complex consists only 2 negative charge, so that the high electronegativity of oxygen of water can disperse 2 negative charge but cannot disperse 4 negative charge. It means tetra aqua beryllium complex is more stable than hexa aqua. But we have discussed only sigma donor, pi donor type ligands. But now it is the time to discuss third class of the ligand, that is pi acceptor type ligand or pi acid type ligands. We know very well pi acid ligands or pi acceptor ligands are those ligands having vacant low lying either pi star bulk orbital or d pi orbital, because in back bonding concept the donor atomic orbital is d pi of metal and acceptor orbital also having same symmetry, that is pi star as well as d pi. It means the symmetry of pi star orbital also T2G, just like d pi orbitals. If there are 3 pi star orbital, then we can say T2G symmetry. Just like 3 d pi orbitals of metal, T2G symmetry. It means there is same symmetry of atomic orbitals of metal and ligand. That's why back bonding can possible or can stabilize metal, because we know very well the well-known example of back bonding or pi acceptor ligand is metal carbonyls. The carbon monoxide is a good pi acceptor ligand. So here we can see the MO diagram of carbon monoxide to understand the chemistry of back bonding, retrodonation. So we can see here the energy separation between 2s and 2p atomic orbital of carbon is very less in compared to energy separation between 2s and 2p atomic orbitals of oxygen. It means there is no chance of mixing of 2s atomic orbital of carbon and 2s atomic orbital of oxygen. That's why before to mixing all hetero atomic orbitals, carbon atomic orbitals, they will mix up, because the energy separation is only 380 kilojoule mole inverse. It means after the mixing, carbon center, we clearly see that there are 2 sp hybridized orbital, out of which 1 sp hybrid orbital is fully filled and another is half filled or singly occupied molecular orbital. And remaining 2 p orbitals, px and py, having 1 p orbital, 1 electron singly occupied and another is vacant. And here oxygen electronic configuration we clearly see 2s atomic orbital having 2 electrons and 2p atomic orbitals, 2px, 2py and 2pz. 2 orbitals are singly filled and 1 is a fully filled. So here I want to show one sigma bond formed by the sp hybrid orbital of carbon and pz orbital of oxygen, then form 2 sigma orbital, and 2 pi orbitals, bonding pi orbitals formed by 1 pi bond by px and px overlapping, and another pi bond forms by overlapping of vacant 2py atomic orbital of carbon and the transferring of 2 electrons or a lone pair of electrons from oxygen to carbon. And now you can say one sigma bond is there, another pi bond is there, but third bond is coordinate covalent, and the direction of coordinate covalent bond is oxygen to carbon, which is opposite or contradictory to electronegativity concept. And this bond is responsible the enriched chemistry of carbon monoxide molecule. Due to this bond, due to direction of this bond, carbon monoxide molecule almost non-polar. Carbon behave in carbon monoxide negative center, and that's why in metal carbonyls, carbon center can bind or can involve in coordination. Otherwise, carbon and oxygen both are having lone pairs of electron, but carbon lone pair is situated on 3 sigma star, which is slightly anti-bonding or non-bonding type molecular orbital. But we can say here 2s atomic orbital, that is 1 sigma in molecular orbitals, means lowest or low lying in molecular orbital, and such type molecular orbital is stereochemically inert. This lone pair cannot involve or cannot participate in bonding because this lone pair is very much near to nucleus of oxygen, so that carbon act as donor site in carbon monoxide. And with the help of this back bonding, retrodonation, metal can stabilize, because we know very well in metal carbonyls, metal exists in zero oxidation state, because metal can donate electron very easily to the pi star molecular orbital of pi acceptor ligand. And simultaneously you can say if metal oxidizing, partially oxidizing by back bonding, then can accept very easily electron through sigma bonding from carbon center of carbon monoxide. It means this type mechanism or bonding known as synergistic effect, synergistic bonding. So what is the synergistic bonding or synergistic effect? One bond strengthened to other bond known as synergistic bonding. Means if pi bond is stronger, means more electron density moves from metal to carbon, then definitely metal becomes slightly electron deficient, electronegative, and highly prone to accept sigma electrons from carbon. It means if strong pi bond, strong back bonding is there, then definitely sigma bonding will be stronger. Through this diagram, we clearly think about back bonding involvement of lone pairs in bonding, in retrodonation, and first organometallic compound of carbon monoxide with the nickel synthesized by Monge in 1890, and after 1 year later Berthelot was synthesized pentacarbonyl iron in 1891. So that now you can say if ligand is sigma donor, pi donor, then you can explain the stability of the coordination compound with the help of electronegativity principle. If ligand is low electronegative like carbon center, then you can explain the stability of coordination compound or organometallic compound with the help of back bonding concept or retrodonation. So collectively both bonding concept known as double bonding concept of VBT. And third concept, as we discussed, magnetism. If compound is tetracoordinated or diamagnetic, then as per valency bond theory, it should be square planar. If compound is tetracoordinated but paramagnetic, then as per valency bond theory, it should be tetrahedral. So on the basis of magnetic property, valency bond theory can define the geometry, but valency bond theory cannot explain or cannot account the color of the complexes, because there is no difference between atomic orbitals or molecular orbitals, because you know very well this concept totally based on covalent characters between metal and ligand. And this theory may predict magnetism wrongly, because the base of magnetism is geometry, and the base of geometry is magnetism. And valency bond theory cannot account spectrochemical series. And we know very well, spectrochemical series was given Suchida in 1838, and the base of theory spectrochemical series was splitting energy. So with the help of crystal field theory, he proposed spectrochemical series, but valency bond theory cannot explain the position of ligands in spectrochemical series. So to overcome all these drawbacks, in 1929, Hans Bethe proposed a wonderful concept of metal ligand bonding in coordination compound, and that was known as crystal field theory. As its name says, crystal field theory, there is a field generated by ligands on metal. And in this theory, Hans Bethe supposed the behavior of transition metals in crystal. So we can say if you are putting transition metals, then what is the behavior? Just like alkali and alkaline earth metals in ionic solids, there is a strong interaction between anion and cation, and this interaction known as electrostatic interaction or ionic interaction. So that Hans Bethe proposed ionic concept or electrostatic concept between metal and ligand in coordination compounds, known as crystal field theory. After 3 years later, 1932, von Vleck contributed magnetism or concept of magnetic behavior into this theory, and finally this theory came as crystal field theory. So now we can think, what is the behavior of d orbitals in crystal in the presence of negative ligand field? So they proposed there is a purely ionic or electrostatic attraction between metal and ligand. They considered ligands as point charge as well as point dipole. They considered there are two types of interactions, ion-ion interaction and another is ion-dipole interaction. They observed the splitting behavior of d orbitals in the presence of ligand field. in the presence of ligand field, the behavior of d orbitals, or we can say the splitting of d orbitals, is the result, or we can say the splitting of d orbital is the result of interelectronic repulsion crystal field and spin orbital coupling. So, to define totally crystal field theory, there are 5 steps. Through this slide, we can see very clearly all these 5 steps one by one. So in first step, there are separated metal and ligand orbitals, and they are situated at very high energy level, and due to their electrostatic attraction or interaction between metal orbital and ligand orbitals decrease the energy, or metal orbitals started come down, and after a certain level another interaction started to emerge. Which one? Repulsive interaction. So after a certain distance between metal and ligand orbitals, there is another interaction, that is repulsive interaction. Due to this interaction, starting the energy of orbitals increasing from their attraction behavior, and in fifth and last stage, d orbitals, 5d orbitals split out, totally split out by 3 interactions, as I told you in earlier slide. So you can say after interaction or after the ligand field, metal d orbitals split out in 2 subsets. One subset is T2Z and another subset is EZ. Here T2Z, we can define T for triply degenerate, means there are 3 d orbitals. There are 3 d pi orbitals, dxz, dyz and dxy orbitals, and 2 comes from, or we can say 2 comes from sigma v symmetry, or if there is C2 axis or more than one C2 axis which is perpendicular to principal axis, then symmetrical, if symmetrical with respect to C2 or sigma v, then 1. If unsymmetrical or antisymmetrical with respect to sigma v and C2, then 2. So in case of d pi orbitals, we know very well d pi orbitals are asymmetrical or antisymmetrical with respect to sigma v as well as C2. Here we will consider C2 because in octahedral case there are 2 C2 which is perpendicular to C4 axis, which is the principal axis in octahedral case. And Z comes from center of inversion, center of symmetry. If orbital ion is symmetrical with respect to center of inversion or I, then Z symmetrical, even parity. If unsymmetrical or odd parity, then U. For example, p orbitals having U symmetry. And in another state, that is easy, E for equally degenerate or doubly degenerate orbitals. There are 2 d orbitals. One is dx square minus y square and another is dz square. And Z as we discussed, comes from center of symmetry. So this is the simply splitting interactions between metal and donor atom, that is ligand. So here we are considering octahedral crystal field, tetrahedral crystal field, square planar crystal field. So first I am taking octahedral crystal field. So as we discussed, in free metal ion all 5d orbitals degenerate, and after the interaction with ligand field, then increase the energy of all 5d orbitals, and these d orbitals are still degenerate if field is spherical. Spherical means if electronic configuration in d orbitals is symmetrical, half filled, full filled, or zero, or vacant, then d orbitals will be degenerated. But after the interaction with ligand, and in octahedral case, ligands are approaching along three axes. X-axis coming two ligands, or along y-axis are coming again two ligands, and finally along z-axis also coming two ligands. As we know, T2G sets, or we can say 3d pi orbitals, are having their lobes in between axes. And the lobes of EG orbitals, or dx square minus y square and dz square orbitals along axis, xy axis, along y axis, along z axis. It means those orbitals having lobes in between axes known as non-axial orbitals, and those orbitals having their lobes along axis known as axial orbitals. And here EG orbitals are axial orbitals. It means there is a strong interaction between incoming ligands or donor atoms with metallic orbitals, then increase the energy of EG set, and the energy of T2G set is decreased because, as we know, the ligands are coming along the axis, but T2G orbitals lobes are in between axes. So there is very few interaction or very weak interactions. So that this is the barycenter. At barycenter, you can say the change in energy is zero. You can count it. In T2G subset, there are 3 d orbitals, and the value of one d orbital equals to negative 4 dq. Negative 4 into 3 equals to negative 12 dq. And similarly, EG subsets having or increasing their energy by 6 dq, and there are 2 d orbitals, it means 6 into 2, and there is a repulsion, that's why positive sign is there before 6. So 6 into 2 again 12, it means negative 12, positive 12 comes 0. It means at barycenter the change in energy is 0. So this is the case of a tetrahedral field. In tetrahedral field, we know very well the ligands neither come along axis nor in between axis. They are coming with a certain angle. Certain angle with metal d orbitals. And the value of angle is, as if we are considering e orbitals, means dx square minus y square and dz square orbital, the angle will be 54.5 degree, which is just half to octahedral bond angle. But if we consider 3 T2 orbitals, then bond angle will be 35 nearly. It means 35 degree is lesser than 54.5 degree. It means which is indicating 3 T2 orbitals are feeling more repulsive interaction in compared to 2 E orbitals. That's why the energy of E orbital is low than that of T2 orbitals. And here one thing I would like to share with you, that G is omitted completely because we know very well G is the result of centrope inversion. And we know tetrahedral molecules or tetrahedral symmetry doesn't have G, means I, centrope inversion. There is no centrope inversion, there is no centrope symmetry, that's why there is no G and U. That's why we are using T2 instead of T2Z, E instead of EZ. So this is the splitting of tetrahedral field. And another four or tetra-coordinated geometry, that is square planar. But in square planar, ligands are approaching again along axis. In first diagram, we can see that there are coming 6 ligands, but finally only 4 ligands are capable to form metal ligand bond. 2 cannot form bond. Those are coming along Z axis. And this type behavior known as distortion. And distortion in octahedral geometry was discovered by John and Taylor in 1837, and this is known as John-Taylor distortion. So that the excess John-Taylor distortion is the result of square planar complexes. Ligands are coming 6, but finally only 4 ligands can approach to the metal center and finally form a square planar complex. So John and Taylor discovered this effect in 1937 in any nonlinear molecules. And John-Taylor distortion is the effect of electronic configuration or symmetry of d orbitals. If electronic configuration is symmetrical in T2G orbital, then there is a very weak distortion. If there is a unsymmetry in electronic configuration in EZ orbital, then there will be very strong distortion in the molecule. And due to this distortion, electronically degenerate states will be split out. They will split out, and after splitting, they will attain lower symmetry and lower energetic configuration. And you can say John-Taylor distortion is the electronic effect instead of geometrical effect. John-Taylor affects the geometry of the molecule, but it originates from electronic configuration. And as I told you, if unsymmetry or there is no symmetry in electronic configuration AG or EG orbitals, then you will see there will be very strong John-Taylor distortion. Why? Because as we discussed in valency bond theory, if D2sp3 hybridization is there, then only 2d orbitals they are taking part in bonding, and they will be dz square and dx square minus y square, and they are known as collectively easy orbitals in octahedral case. And it means they are involved in the sigma bond directly. That's why their effect will be considerable or in large amount. So this type of behavior generally or openly occurs in copper second and chromium third compounds or coordination complexes. So there are three types of Jones-Taylor distortion. If distortion along C4 axis in octahedral complexes, then distortion known as tetragonal distortion. If along C3 axis in octahedral complexes, then trigonal. If along 2C2 or C4 axis, then rhombohedral distortion is there. So for the tetragonal distortion is two types. One is tetragonal elongation and another is tetragonal compression, or we can say tetragonal elongation, also known as Z out, and tetragonal compression known as Z in. Why? Because in this diagram we can see very clearly that along Z ligands, along Z axis, ligands cannot approach properly to the metal line, because along the Z axis there is a strong repulsion between dz square electrons and incoming ligand electrons. It means this type distortion will be occurred if EG or dz square orbital is fulfilled. If dz, or we can say dx square minus y square orbital is fulfilled, then along x and along y axis ligands cannot approach properly to the metal line. But now in that case, ligands along z axis can approach properly, because here dz square orbital is half filled, but orbitals, those are lying along x-axis and y-axis are half filled. Means there is less repulsion. So out of these two distortions, Z out is prominently found in the compounds. Why? Because we can see very clearly there are only two ligands or two metal ligand bonds are affected or stretching their bond. But in case of Z in or Z compression, in Z compression there are four bonds are stretching. It means Z compression requires more energy for stretching. That's why, as I told you, Z out effect is the most prominent effect in the coordination compounds. And through this diagram, we can think very clearly. So here in middle one, there is a normal octahedral T2G and EZ orbitals, but in right hand side, tetragonal elongation is there. Then D4S point group means just like square planar. That's why I told you the excess amount of tetragonal distortion is the result of square planar, because along the z axis ligands cannot form bond or cannot approach to the metal ion properly. That's why the metal ligand bond distance along the z-axis will be slightly larger than that of bond length of xy plane. So that here we clearly observe out of 6 electrons in T2g orbitals in case of octahedral, after distortion 4 electrons are getting extra stability and only 2 are getting instability. And in EG electrons, there are 3 electrons in EG orbitals. Out of 3, 2 are getting stability and occupying in dz square orbital, and only 1 is destabilizing. It means in totality, out of 9 electrons in copper case, 6 are getting stability and only 3 are getting instability. It means in copper case, copper cannot form regular octahedral complexes. Why? Because after distortion, after tetragonal distortion, metal occupies more stable or lower energetic configuration, so that tetragonal elongation is the result if dx squared minus y squared is half filled, and tetragonal compression is the result of half filled dz square. But as I told you, tetragonal compression is less prominent effect, because in tetragonal compression, out of 9 electrons, 4 are getting stability but 5 are getting instability or unstabilizing. It means you can say in nutshell, tetragonal elongation is a prominent effect in copper second and chromium third complexes, because in both types of coordination compounds or with metal ion, there is unsymmetry in EG orbitals, so that the distortion will be very strong or prominent. So here I am just trying to define elongation and compression with splitting of d orbitals from octahedral to tetragonal distortion, and here octahedral to tetragonal distortion. So now again I am discussing MO diagram for splitting diagram for square planar, because as I told you, excess John-Taylor distortion is the result of square planar complexes. Here you can see very clearly we are starting from octahedral complexes, then octahedral complexes are getting distortion, and then finally they will form square planar complexes, and the energy of orbitals, those are lying xy plane increasing, and those are present along the z-axis decreasing. And in case of platinum tetrachloroplatinate second, the energy level of dz square orbital is lowest. It means that is strongest John-Taylor distortion is there. But crystal field theory can explain slightly color of the complexes, magnetism of the complexes, but again this theory cannot explain electronic spectra. spectrochemical series, because this theory totally depends upon electrostatic interaction between metal and ligand orbitals. If we consider H2O ligand and OH minus ligand, then definitely as per this theory, OH minus hydroxyl ion is stronger ligand compared to water. But really, the splitting energy for water is larger than that of hydroxyl ion. Oxalate ion is weaker than H2O. Why? This cannot explain with the help of crystal field theory. And similarly, crystal field theory considers only and only d orbitals. Heart of this theory only d orbitals. And this theory cannot explain, as I told you, magnetism also. So to overcome again these drawbacks, to define the electronic spectra, to define spectrochemical series, we have to require another advanced theory, that is molecular orbital theory. And molecular orbital theory in covalent molecules proposed by Horns, Mulliken and Kuljan in 1927, but in coordination compound this theory proposed in 1932. As I told you, all three theories are contemporary theories. They came almost same time period. And this theory, molecular orbital theory, define electronic spectra and color very nicely. And in this diagram, this is the simply octahedral molecular orbital diagram for sigma type complexes. Only sigma donor type complexes like ammonia. Here again you can see T2G and EG is there, just like CFT. But in this theory, S and P orbitals are also taking part in the bonding. But CFT concentrates only and only d orbitals. But here you can see there are 6 sigma ligand group orbitals. Means these ligand group orbitals adopt their symmetry as per metallic orbital symmetry. And this is known as symmetry adapted molecular orbital, SAM. It means here we know very well, if we consider VPT, then D2sp3, it means 2D, means EG is there, SA1 is there, P3 T1U is there. It means they are adopting their symmetry as per metallic orbital, and the symmetry of metallic orbital we know very well. Metal orbitals having T2G and EG, 3D orbitals, and 4s orbital or s orbital having A1G symmetry and 4p having T1U symmetry. So in nutshell you can say, in metal side there are 9 atomic orbitals, and ligand side there are 6 ligand group orbitals. So there are total 15 atomic orbitals. It means they will form 15 molecular orbitals. Out of 15 molecular orbitals, 6 are bonding and 6 are anti-bonding, and remaining 3 are non-bonding, and these are T2Z. It means here T2Z non-bonding and AG is anti-bonding, and collectively both are known as FMO, frontier molecular orbital, because T2G known as HOMO, highest occupied molecular orbital, and EG known as lowest unoccupied molecular orbitals, and collectively known as FMO. So this is the simple MO diagram for sigma donor type ligand like ammonia. But if we consider pi bonding, just like in CrCO6, carbonyl, chromium, tungsten, molybdenum, then the interaction will be totally different. And what is the effect of pi bonding on energy level? You can see very clearly here T2G orbitals and EG orbital we are considering from sigma MO diagram T2G and EG. But here I am considering two types of the ligand. In one side pi donor and other side pi acceptor. So this side means right hand side you can think filled T2G orbital. As I told you, the symmetry of pi orbitals is same, just like T2G d orbital, d pi orbitals. That's why pi bonding is possible due to same symmetry. But as I told you, pi donor means p orbital is filled. So that, and p orbital filled means like halides. The electronegativity of halide type ligands or pi donor type ligands is little bit more than metal. And due to this, the energy level of these T2G orbitals are slightly lower than metallic T2G orbitals. So that here T2G and here T2G, they will overlap and then form two sets of T2G. One set is T2G bonding molecular orbital and another set is a T2G anti-bonding molecular orbitals. And here EG star or anti-bonding EG orbitals will remain same as such. There is no change in energy level of EG orbitals because EG orbitals take part in sigma bonding only. We are considering here pi bonding. So that in pi bonding only d pi orbitals of metal and their symmetry, same symmetrical T2G orbitals of pi. So these T2G bonding molecular orbitals filled by ligand electrons and T2G of metal orbitals goes little bit more energy level, that is T2G star. And I am taking 3 electrons or half filled T2G orbitals, then these 3 electrons goes in T2G star, means you are increasing energy. It means if ligand is pi donor type, then T2G orbitals of metal get destabilized or unstabilized, and resultant decrease the energy level between T2G and EG, and that's why pi donor type ligands always be weak field ligand or weakest in spectrochemical series because they decrease the energy separation between T2G and EG. And you know very well, if there is less separation between T2G and EG molecular orbitals, then there will be no pairing in electrons. It means complex will be formed I spin type, spin free type. So that pi donor type ligand always forms I spin complex because they are destabilizing T2G orbitals of metal. And in contrast to these ligands, pi acceptor type ligands like CO, Cn-, CnR, PR3, C2H4, or you can say all aromatic ligand like orthophenanthroline, pyridine, bipyridine. There are several types of the ligands. They have vacant pi star molecular orbital just like carbon monoxide. So in all unsaturated organic ligands like ethylene, and you can explain bonding just like Duncanson chart Dewar model, DCD model. So that here you can say again you are starting pi star means, as I told you in COMO diagram, pi star is vacant but having same symmetry just like d pi orbitals. It means the symmetry of pi star orbital of a ligand or carbon monoxide type ligands is T2G, just like T2G d pi orbitals of metal. So again, pi star orbital is vacant, high lying. That's why the energy of pi star orbitals in pi acceptor type ligands is slightly high in compared to metallic T2G orbitals. Then again, by the overlapping of metallic T2G orbital and T2G of pi star orbitals, and then again from two sets, one T2G bonding orbitals and another is T2G antibonding orbitals. But again, you can see after the mixing, after the pi bonding, T2G metallic orbitals are getting stability, or you can say all 3 electrons or 6 electron, 4 electron, T2G electrons are getting stability after pi bonding, and result in increase the energy separation between T2G and Eg star. It means those ligands are having pi star molecular orbital, or those are pi S type ligands known as strong field ligand or strongest field ligand. That's why you can say in spectrochemical series, you just remember on the basis of pi bonding capacity of the ligand. So Suchida, spectrochemical series, we can learn very easily carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and fluorine based ligands. Carbon we know very well forms strongest pi bond. That's why strongest ligand CO, Cn minus, CnR, C2H4, and then come nitrogen. Nitrogen containing ligands are mild, or you can say strong but less than carbon, because nitrogen less prone to form pi bond in compared to carbon. And if we move from nitrogen to oxygen, then again decrease the pi bonding capability or capacity. So oxygen containing or donor site containing ligands are weaker compared to nitrogen donor sites. And finally, halides are weakest ligand. So now you can say on the basis of donating or types of ligand, you can say which one strong field ligand or which one mild or which one weaker field ligands. So pi acceptor ligands are strong field ligand because they are stabilizing T2G orbitals or partially oxidizing. And you can say if electrons are moving from metal to ligand, means metal is getting or slightly oxidizing after transferring the electron. It means if increase the oxidation state of metal, then increase effective nuclear charge. If increase effective nuclear charge, then increase attraction capacity. Then decrease the energy of T2G orbitals because increasing attraction capacity. So that pi acceptor ligands are capable to oxidize metal slightly. That's why metal carbonyls exist in zero oxidation state, because metal have to have filled d orbitals. Otherwise, metal carbonyl cannot exist. So with the help of this pi bonding, now you can say or you can define spectrochemical series. Those ligands are pi acceptor type ligands. There will be strong field ligand, or those are pi donor type ligand, then weaker field ligands. So this is the simply ligand field theory. With the help of Foucault, FMO approach came 1954 for organic molecules, FMO approach. With the help of this theory, Griffith and Organ in 1957 proposed a mixed bonding theory of metal ligand of coordination compounds, and this theory known as ligand field theory. Here mixed or ligand field, it means this is the mixture of two theories. MOT, that is totally covalent. MOT defines covalent character between metal and ligand, and CFT defines ionic character or electrostatic attraction or character interaction between metal and ligand. It means CFT considered only ionic character between metal and ligand, MOT considered covalent character between metal and ligand, and LFT can define mixed character. It means as per ligand field theory, you can say metal and ligand bond is having covalent character as well as ionic character. It totally depends upon nature of metal and nature of ligand. If ligand is pi acceptor, then definitely more pi characters, more covalent characters, because there is a strong back bonding is there. It means totally depends upon nature of metal and nature of ligand. And all these behavior, such type behavior, we can explain by using instruments or analytical techniques like NMR, ESR, hyperfine splitting is there, which is denoting delocalization of electron between metal orbital and ligand orbitals. And we know very well Naprogetic effect also is there. So this NQR is there. This theory or analytical methods can define the covalent character in metal ligand bond, so that this theory is the hybrid theory of previous two theories, and which one more advanced than CFT and MOT. And last theory, that one very wonderful theory proposed by Larsen and Marr in 1974 and known as angular overlap method. As its name defines, angular overlap method, it means the extent of overlapping between metal orbital and ligand orbital totally depends upon angular wave function, not radial wave function. It means it is totally the result of angle between metal orbital and incoming ligand orbitals. So this theory has considered only and only angular behavior of orbitals. It means their interaction between metal and ligand orbitals based angular angle, so that this one most advanced theory to define metal ligand bonding, and which is based on angular wave function. So, and we can say in other words, this theory is simply quantitative explanation or interpretation of molecular orbital theory, or by use of this theory you can explain VBT, CFT, MOT, LFT. So this is a wonderful theory, and here again we are considering position of ligand, and we know very well here we are considering 12 positions. So we are starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in octahedral, then 7, 8, 9, 10 in tetrahedral case, and 11, 12, 1, 6 and 2 in trigonal bipyramidal case. So these ligand positions are very important, because on the basis of ligand position and on the basis of orbital position, you can define the overlapping extent. You can define metal ligand bond strength. So in case of dz square and pz orbital, metallic dz square orbital and ligand pz orbital, they mix up, they overlap each other, then form two types of molecular orbital. One is E sigma and another is E sigma. Bonding and anti-bonding. And again, as I told you, ligand is more electronegative. That's why the energy of sigma is lower than dz square. So that here we are considering amount of energy change of atomic orbitals in terms of E sigma. We are considering sigma bonding is there. That's why. So that E sigma is sigma. So on the basis of position of ligand, we can define the geometries. If linear is there, then definitely 1,6 position. If ligands are 2 and 11, 12, then you can say trigonal planar geometry will be there. T-shape means seesaw geometry, or we can say C2V symmetry is there. If ligands are positioned at 1, 3 and 5th position. Tetrahedral 7, 8, 9, 10, and as we discussed square planar there, then position will be 2, 3, 4, 5, and similarly and so on. So on the basis of these positions, I am considering here MO diagram 5 d orbitals, here 6 ligand orbitals. Ligand orbitals are filled, means 6 ligand orbitals filled means 12 electrons are there, and they are filled in E sigma bonding molecular orbitals, because these E sigma bonding molecular orbitals are ligand centered. The properties of E sigma bonding molecular orbitals resemblance with ligand group orbitals. That's why. And d orbitals, again we are considering two subsets, T2z and dz, but here we are considering E sigma terms, so that just like now you can think both theories, CFT is there, MOT is there. In MOT, all 6 bonding molecular orbitals filled by ligand electrons in MOT also, and here also, and in CFT T2z and dz orbitals are there, and similarly here also. And the amount of energy, again you are maintaining barycenter. It means the change at that center energy will be, or change in energy will be 0. How? There are 12 electrons, means 12 into 1 E sigma. It means 12 E sigma in negative, and again here 2 molecular orbitals means 4 into 3 E sigma means again 12 E sigma. It means 0 at barycenter. So now you can define CFT, MOT. So with the help of this one, now you can say which d orbitals are taking part prominently or less effectively in which geometry. If we are considering octahedral, then you can think position of ligand 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we know very well in octahedral geometry, dz square and dx square minus y square orbitals in sigma bond formation totally involved. And here again you can think here, if we consider the energy of dz square orbital, then how much it is coming? 3 E sigma. dx square minus y square, again it is coming 3 E sigma. And in total, if we have position of a ligand, then 1 E sigma. As we discussed in earlier slide, ligand orbitals 1 E sigma and metal orbitals 3 E sigma. And similarly here you can sum the energy change of 1 d orbital. It comes 3, 1, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25 and 1. It means it is coming 3. Similarly 3, 4 dx square minus y square. It means if ligand orbitals are positioned at 1 and 6, then dz square orbital will be effectively overlapped. And plane 2, 3, 4, 5 positions, then dx square minus y square orbital will be effectively overlapped. But dxy, dxz, dyz orbitals are zero overlapping in sigma bonding. As we know, in sigma bonding means VPT. D2sp3, which two d orbitals can take part? Dz square and dx square minus y square. And now you can say, you can quantify the contribution of only these two d orbitals in sigma bonding. There is zero contribution of d pi orbitals. If we consider tetrahedral geometry, we know very well, for example, permagnetine. There is the sd3 hybridization. So, which d orbitals can take part in the bonding? Now you can say, which d orbital? Only d pi. Here, T2 orbital. 0.3, 0.3, 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. In total, you can say dz square and dx square minus y square cannot take part in bonding in tetrahedral. That's why in permanganate, chromate, sd3 hybridization, but which three d orbitals? Only and only dxz, dxz and dyz orbitals. Similarly, you can define the involvement of d orbitals in bonding by using this table very easily in sigma unit. Similarly, we are considering pi star type molecular orbital or pi bonding type interactions. In last, we considered, I think, sigma donor type, but now we are considering pi acceptor type ligands. It means here again, you know very well, the energy of pi star is high in compared to metallic d orbitals. Dx orbital, we are taking dx orbital as an example, so that here we are considering pi. That's why in terms of E pi. So E pi, the changing energy again will be zero. You can count it very easily by the pi star interaction, or you can say the pi star or back bonding retrodonation or pi bonding stabilize d orbital. And now you can see here also, just like MOT, CFT. In MOT we have considered that pi bonding. Then I told you that these three d pi orbitals get extra stability after pi interaction with pi acceptor type ligands, and the amount is 4 e pi. And again, these are pi star orbitals, so these are stabilized and these are destabilized by 2 e pi, and metallic electrons are stabilized by 4 e pi. Now this is maintaining again barycenter, and you can calculate here 3 orbitals means 6 electron can occupy, then 6 into 4 e pi, then 24 e pi. And again there are 6 vacant pi orbitals, means 6 into 2 e pi equals to 6 pi orbital, means 12 pi electrons can accommodate, then 12 into 2 equals to 24. It means again you are maintaining barycenter. So here you are including concept of MOT, CFT. So now this is a changing. For example, as we discussed, if we want to discuss the bonding in CrCO6 type molecule, then the position of ligand you know very well. In octahedral, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the involvement of d orbitals will be how much? It will be 4. And involvement of ligand orbitals only 2 e pi, as we discussed here. 4 e pi, ligand orbitals 2 e pi, metal orbitals 4 e pi. Here you can consider, but which d orbital can form pi bond? And we know very well, d pi orbital, dxy, dxz, dyz. And then if you sum contribution of one d orbital, for example, dxy orbital, then it comes 4. In octahedral case, similarly, 4, 4 dxz and 4, 4 only dyz orbitals. It means now you can say which d orbital can form pi bond with ligand d pi orbital. That's why they known as d pi orbitals. So which d orbitals are d pi orbitals? dxy, dxz and dyz. And now the very interesting concept is there. If you are considering tetrahedral molecule, then pi bonding is a very wonderful. It means all 5d orbitals are taking part in pi bonding in tetrahedral complexes. 7, 8, 9, 10 position of the ligand. Then you can see very clearly all 5d orbitals are contributing in pi bonding, but slightly dz square and dx square minus y square is more than that of dxy, dxz and dyz orbitals. So these are the pi interaction type interactions with pi acceptor ligands. So this is the simply pi acceptor, and then finally third type of the ligand is a pi donor. As we discussed, there are three types of the ligands. Sigma donor we have discussed, then pi acceptor we have discussed, then last type of the ligand is pi donor, means halide. Sigma donor means ammonia, aqua. Pi acceptor means CO, Cn minus, CnR, C2S4, orthopentanoline, pyridine, bipyridine, ethylene. And pi donor means halide, oxide, thiolides. These are pi donor ligand because the donor orbital is a p orbital and p orbital is a field, and you know halide is more electronegative. That's why px orbital here we are considering low lying in compared to xz of metallic orbital. So again this is simply e pi, but you can see if pi donor ligand, then pi donor ligand orbitals destabilizing T2Z metallic orbitals and decrease the energy of this one and decrease the splitting energy between T2Z and EZ. But pi acceptor ligands, they are increasing the resultant splitting energy. So it means now you can quantify the destabilization of T2Z orbital with interaction with ligands. Those are pi donor types. So simply here I want to show again very interesting concept. Pi bond is weaker than sigma bond. We know very well due to extent of overlapping. We know very well sigma bond is the result of direct overlapping, along axis overlapping, direct overlapping, but pi bonding is the result of collateral overlapping, side by overlapping. It means there is between one plane for pi orbitals. That's why weaker interaction. And in quantify, we can consider, for example, pyridyl ligand is a pyridyl with cobalt 2 positive and cobalt plus 3. Then you can say if you are increasing oxidation state of metal just like CFT, then increasing splitting energy. In cobalt 2 positive case, there is only 3860 centimeter inverse. But in case of cobalt 3 positive, it is 6100 centimeter inverse, almost double. And same trend you can see in CFT also. If you are increasing oxidation state of the metal, then increasing effective nuclear charge. If increasing Z, then increasing interaction between, because CFT is electrostatic interaction. If you are increasing charge on metal, then you are increasing electrostatic interaction between metal and ligand. And pi bond, now pi bond is very weaker in compared to sigma. This is very, very dominant effect that you can say that pi bond is weaker bond in coordination compounds also, just like in covalent molecules. So this is the just like effect, and just like CFT, again you can define fluoride, chloride, bromide, iodide. If you are increasing the size, if you are decreasing the electronegativity, then decreasing the interaction. So you can quantify this interaction in terms of E sigma and E pi, and similarly you can define the amount of splitting also, again totally depends. As we discussed in CFT, splitting energy in octahedral is larger compared to tetrahedral and largest for square planar. Why? Because in tetrahedral there are only 4 ligands, in octahedral there are 6 ligands, and there is none of ligand is coming or directly contact with metallic orbitals in tetrahedral. That's why splitting amount is 4 by 9 in tetrahedral in compared to octahedral. And both effects you can see here also. Largest splitting energy in square planar and least one in tetrahedral. And that's why tetrahedral complexes are always I-spin complexes, except one Bohr-Enlil complexes with cobalt is. These are references. So for further reading, we can consult all these books. So finally, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very nice and informative session for all. Thank you very much once again.